The topic of our panel discussion is Indian policy approach towards AI adoption in the financial sector. So, let me first up share with you that we're really privileged to have a distinguished panel representing diverse domains that is right from banking and regulation to academia and law. And without any further ado, it's time to tune in and take note for each one of you as I invite on stage, first up, the person who's going to be the captain of the ship, sailing the conversation ahead for us, our moderator, Mr. Aniruddha Marathe, partner BCG. A warm welcome to you. Let us give him a resounding round of applause. Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to you. It is a pleasure to have you here with us. And let us continue the accolades and appreciation going as I invite our esteemed and distinguished panel members, some trailblazers in their own right. First up, Mr. Anjani Kumar Rathor, Group Head, Digital and Customer Experience, HDFC Bank. Yes, let's hear it up for him. A warm welcome to you. Up next, let's give it up for Professor Balaraman Ravindran, Director, Wadhwani School of Data Science and AI, IIT Madras. Thank you so much for your presence here. I hope we are being seated in our orders. Okay, this is a four-seater, so okay. And last but not the least, Mr. Suvendu Pati, Chief General Manager, FinTech Department, Reserve Bank of India. A very warm welcome to you as well. It's our privilege to have such bright minds on our panel here today, and I leave the conversation in your able guidance. Thank you so much, Aniruddha. Taking off for here.
Thank you so much, and it's such a wonderful welcome. Really appreciate. It's a very, very interesting topic, and I have luminaries of this field. Very interestingly, all three of these gentlemen sitting next to me have been the authors of the free AI report that RBI came out with very recently. As a result of that, as part of that process, a lot of thinking, deliberation has actually happened. And we will deep dive on some of that. And also beyond that, we will go and discuss a few other elements in that context. There is absolutely no doubt that all of us in this room and beyond believe that AI is a game changer already. It has seen adoption in diverse fields, and finance is no behind. Finance perhaps will be at the forefront given that it is a data and knowledge intensive industry. And therefore, it is very, very imperative that one needs to look at it also from the perspective of who's going to be the watchman here, right? What is going to be the policy stand in this context? So I'll start with Mr. Pati. Sir, a lot of innovation potential is there in financial services that AI can bring, right? What you see as the most critical innovations or most important innovations that the industry can come out with? And as I talked about the free AI report, if you can just also talk about how RBI is thinking about enabling these innovations as outlined in this report.
Yeah, thank you, Aniruddha and co-panelists for joining in. I know it's a lunchtime break for many of you, but this topic that is chosen is really interesting. And it took us, the entire committee, a long time to think through and come out with the suggestions. At the outset, I must say that whatever I speak, particularly from the standpoint from this forum, I must clarify that these are the committee's views, and these are report is also getting examined by the Reserve Bank of India internally. So some of the thoughts are clearly to be seen as the comments of the committee and not necessarily as the final word from the RBI on all those issues. But yes, as AI is some technology, we see great potential for the financial sector. Most of the discussion so far has happened in the dimensions of risk. But from the committee standpoint, we did look at the adoption in Indian context. We did some quick surveys and all that. So what we are seeing now is we are still witnessing an early stage of adoption, and typically the banks, it is mostly on the customer engagement side or summarization, analysis of the reports, or those kind of stuff which is happening. And in the short run, we do see those kind of applications, chatbots and customer engagement. These are the priority areas. Some of the early adoption is also there in terms of the fraud analytics or using AI for analytics and all. But what we would like to see the innovation as we understand the potential of this technology is to can we think about bringing inclusion or by developing new credit models which would bring the new to credit customers, so far customers with thin files and customers with, depending on the analysis of the alternate data sources. So that is one area we think we must really take pains to build those kind of difficult solutions or difficult tasks made simpler through AI. Second, we would like to see that how does AI integrate with the digital public infrastructures that we already have? Can it be integrated to the conversational payments? Can it be included to the digital identities, KYC and verification process? These are the definitely areas where we do see the technology as a potential. Of course, there needs to be guardrails. How do we prevent deepfakes from getting through? The more we go down the digital channel, how do we keep maintaining the trust in the system, even though technology would enable some of those newer possibilities? So these are some of the, and mostly we would say that going forward, even more complex challenges would require complex issues would get resolved. And then when we are dealing with something with the financial sectors like trust and other things, agentic AI and those things tools are coming our way. So we need to think through as to, although they would explore or open up newer possibilities, how do we embed them into the everyday financial systems and processes without causing risks to the system. So many possibilities that are there, and we are quite sanguine and hopeful that more unlocking can happen as we go forward.
Thank you. Mr. Rathor, I'll come to you. You have been at the forefront of deploying what AI has to offer. And it's been a journey, and obviously it will continue. But at the way it stands now, what do you think are the early wins? Where do you really see value accruing, something that other banks, other financial institutions are likely to take forward in the near future? Just to state the lay of the land right now.
Thank you, Aniruddha, for having me here. It's a very interesting mix of panelists that you've got. A regulator, somebody who's implementing, and of course, the research, the think tank here. As far as the banks are concerned, and all financial institutions, we have been working on AI for some time. This is the discriminative AI. What is well known now as generative AI has just started a few years ago. But discriminative AI has been prevalent in banking for some time. And it is being used across the value chain, right from customer engagement. So when you call a contact center, there is a good chance that your query will get answered by a machine and not by a man or a human being. And this is improving, and it has improved over the last few years. So if you ask something which is simple, the machine will be able to answer. If it's very complicated, then it gets directed to a human being. Likewise, in credit underwriting, again, a lot of data which is residing within the bank or now outside the bank getting pulled through account aggregator ecosystem is getting processed. And based on that, some decisions are getting taken. We also see risk and fraud prevention work happening with the use of the same data. We are now able to personalize to a single customer using data analysis. All these things have been evolving over the last few years and is improving. The only challenge is that AI is a probabilistic technology. It is not deterministic. So it will never give 100% right answer, but it does drive towards 100% as much as possible. But in banks, when we have to act, or in financial services, you cannot be transferring 896 rupees to someone and oops, 894 goes. So we have to be careful that it is used in a manner that it's a right combination of deterministic outcome married with some probabilistic tools which are there. And we are seeing some improved results over the last few years. With the advent of generative AI, this thing becomes a little more complicated because it's now generating content, generating outcome, which is not just probabilistic, but it's also hallucinating. So you can ask the same question 3 times and it is possible that you get a different answer 3 times. So it is increasingly becoming complicated, but financial services are adopting that and it's moving forward.
Indeed. Dr. Ravindran, I'll come to you. As Mr. Rathod said, the generative AI is the new area that is really coming up, and that is where the things need to stabilize. If I look at it from the Indian ecosystem perspective, right, there are 2 priorities in some ways. One is to work on, let's say, the language models, small language models in the Indian context, which are going to be important. And the second part is also the applications of it, the use cases. For example, Mr. Pati talked about the agentic AI, right? How do you see, how this priority order should be? What should be the focus for the ecosystem as a whole?
Sure. So, it's actually the definition of what is a small language model and what's a large language model seems to be changing literally on a weekly basis. So now people are talking about small models that are 70 billion parameters large. I mean, small, right? The challenge, though, for many of these models, especially given the kind of investments that we have to put into building these models from scratch, is what is the business value of using these models? And I would strongly suggest that we start looking at building business cases, right? With the existing open source models that are out there. I mean, increasingly, more and more, like even OpenAI finally has put out models in the open. And so as Google's models are now coming out in the open and so on and so forth, it's quite straightforward for us to start thinking about building solutions, right? Building use cases that are on top of these open models, right? So what are the biggest advantages you're going to get from building our sovereign small language models? First, you're going to get language inclusivity, right? The second, you're going to get even more regional nuances into it. It is not just a question of modeling 22 languages, but getting the accents right, and so on and so forth. So all of these, right, these larger models, even though they claim that they can do Hindi well, Telugu well, or Tamil well, they don't get the nuances, the regional accents well. So that's something that you can get to. But these are, in my opinion, the second generation versions of these tools, which you should invest in once you have proven the value of something that you can do with the open models. So I think our focus should be more on building these open models rather than getting into these small language models.
So very clear action bias. It's so great to see. And in fact, the free air report actually is an enabler. So, Mr. Rathor, I'll come back to you. The report has made various recommendations, in terms of how the policy stands should be, or how the policy looks at, the expectation from the industry, right? There are many enablers also that need to be created. There are about 26 recommendations. 5 of them are short-term in nature. There are medium-term also. The question is that even if I look at all these recommendations, right, and if I look at, let's say, even just the short-term ones, what do we expect to come in the near future? What does short-term really mean? I mean, for example, if I look at, let's say, something like, we need to have a data ecosystem. It's not something that can be built so easily. So your thoughts on what do we see as coming, in the near future?
So first of all, these recommendations are dynamic in nature, and one of the recommendations is creation of a standing committee, which has gone in to say that there should be a team of or set of eyes who are looking at the industry and will be making fine-tuned changes to any of these recommendations over a period of time. So this is going to change what is today a reality, as Professor Ravindran said. The definition of small language models are changing. Many things are changing today. We have not reached a maturity in this particular technology. Having said that, there are 26 recommendations, and if you will notice that none of them are very long-term. These are something to be implemented. And should the regulator which is studying it and they find some of these relevant in today's day and context, they are going to, of course, take up the implementation as well. The whole idea is that as we look at the future, let's say next 12-month horizon, are we able to take this forward and take some of these recommendations to its fruition and see that it gets implemented? For example, you mentioned about creating a data pipe. In AI, data is very important. And this is one example that has, it was a penny drop example for me. There was a team which was creating how to read fake notes. But the challenge is you need fake notes to study a model is working fine, and that is restricted. It's not that you can easily get it. So any kind of a model that we create, any kind of AI that we use is going to need the data that financial sector is producing. How do we bring that data safely at one place and use our models on top of that to take valuable decisions is very important. And in fact, you'll be surprised to know that some of the steps that RBI has taken is already in that direction. There is effort going on to pull data together to see how we can prevent risk and fraud, which is prevalent today. So we do believe that once the regulator has gone through this, many of these will at least start seeing implementation over the next few months or so.
It's very heartening to hear the language of months, which is very much required, actually. I mean, it's a very burning need. And you referred to very interesting points about data. And Dr. Endran, I'll come to you. The data is actually spread out, right? Different banks will have different data. Some data RBI will have at a consolidated level. If I look at, slightly broader use case, let's say if I look at infrastructure finance, right, that there is data which goes beyond just the financial data. There is also third-party kind of a data. A lot of it is unstructured also. Classic example is this fake note example that Mr. Rathor gave. How do we channelize this? How do we orchestrate this data environment, which then can become so to say, the foundation on which the entire country benefits?
Sure. So this is not actually unique to the financial ecosystem, right? So even though the government loves to say that we have a lot of data, the healthcare data, there is no, we have more sick people than most countries have people in them, right? So, but then this data is again not orchestrated. Right? So there are two ways of thinking about it. There's a technical way to look at it. So where we say there are algorithms, there are approaches like federated learning and distributed machine learning approaches, which can work with fragmented data sets, right? But the challenge is, again, there are limitations to scaling, there are limitations to the performance that you can achieve by going that path, right? So the more reliable and more sustainable approach would be to have some kind of infrastructure that is created by either the regulator or by an industry body that kind of pulls this data together. So if you look at some of the recommendations that we have put together in the free AI report, it is about building a data lake. Right, so where we are encouraging different banks and different REs to actually contribute suitably anonymized data with all the safeguards, right? No identifiable data and things like that, and to create this and to make it available as a digital public good, right? So unless that push comes in, and it's going to happen so ICMR has already started doing that for the healthcare data. Right? And AI Kosha, which is the central government's effort to do this kind of data pooling across multiple ministries, multiple industries, multiple verticals. And I think the banking sector also has to go that way and create its data lake. And I think that's something that we strongly encourage in the report as well.
Interesting. Mr. Pati, I'll come to you. Dr. Ravindran talked about, even policy makers or, regulators like yourself, RBI, taking certain initiatives to, champion this. So I'm sure RBI already has a few things in motion, and it will be very interesting to know how RBI is taking proactive steps in this direction to make some of these use cases come alive, or helping the industry to bring some of those cases to come alive. Would be very glad to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. Glad that you asked this question. So as they say that Reserve Bank has started to, soil its hands in a way. So it's not about, no longer about advising and just, sitting tight. So we are also started looking at the mule bank account problem. We have developed internally a mule hunter .ai. That's the model which we have developed internally through our Reserve Bank Innovation Hub, which is getting implemented across banks. And we started with 5 banks at the early stage of this year. Now it is scaled up to double digits, and it's getting scaled as we speak. And this is something which is again AI/ML based model, and it is through the ecosystem level, the run at various banks. This model is also getting improved in finding patterns and getting replicated across other banks. There is the larger picture that, and all that more we go down the digital payments and digital transactions route, the frauds are also taking place in some way. It is not due to any system-wide issues, I would say, but mostly through many other social engineering and other stuff. But our effort should be towards to how do we bring down this or detect them early and prevent losses and safeguard customers. So in that direction, as if you go back, there is a monetary policy announcement was made sometime back last year to develop a digital payment intelligence platform. And the work is already on, and I would say that Mule Hunter is a sub-segment in the entire architecture. And so that is also getting developed, where in the first phase, a negative registry is being built, which is getting the data from the telecom data and I4C data. So those kind of things are getting, and the negative POS registries, terminals which are reported. So based on the initial scrubbing of those negative registries, some kind of a payment, that alert generation is being contemplated. And the second phase, of course, it will be based on the data made available by the various banks in a real-time basis. This is going to be a much bigger platform where the AI-based models would start alerting the banks as to either this transaction could be a potential fraud, and the banks would take either an enhanced due diligence or do some kind of action, debit freeze or otherwise. So this is something in the works, and we are also, the committee recommends that AI sandbox, innovation sandbox. So clearly we are, this is some effort it will take to bring elements where the people or entities can test their models or solutions in an environment which is made available to them, otherwise which is not available at an ecosystem level. So these are some of the works that is already taking place, and as Dr. Ravindran said, we have also talked about the data infrastructure. While the MeitY and their India AI mission is working on the infrastructure compute side, we would be working towards the enablement of the data availability of other ingredients that are required to build models and test solutions. So these are our broad approach, and AI Kosha, as they say, it is opening up the data sets for various sectors, and of course, financial sector would be a big contributor in that dimension.
Very interesting. A lot of initiatives in play, and I'm sure they will, really help the entire industry to move this, field forward. Coming back to Dr. Ravindran, India is also perhaps the world leader in digital public infrastructure, right? I'm just taking some of the thoughts that Mr. Pati mentioned about, the initiatives that the RBI is taking, and then he also talked about, collaboration among various other industry participants, right? We have seen, DPI 1.0 being a tremendous success, DPI 2.0, again, there are many initiatives in the play. Do you see, opportunity for some kind of digital public, I wouldn't say infrastructure in this context, but digital public goods setup, where, which is more focused on AI, beyond the digital transformation that the DPI kind of brought about?
Sure. So that's a great lead up to some of the things that the government is also putting together right now. So we have, in some sense, that the digital payment infrastructure, the digital gateways and things like that have enabled a lot of access to financial data, which most economies can't dream about, right? So there is one side to this. Whenever people talk about India-specific challenges in building AI, the first thing that they bring up is multilinguality, right? So India speaks too many languages, there are different cultures and so on and so forth. But apart from the challenges, we also have unique opportunities like the digital payment interface, right? So that granularity of data, right? I mean, I can go buy from a fruit vendor who is pushing a cart. I can buy something from him, and that transaction gets digitally recorded, right? So what can AI do with this kind of data, this granularity of data, right? And then you can create network of trade that is happening, right? Just through this kind of a digital infrastructure. So there's so much opportunity that we can, leverage from the existing digital public infrastructure that's there in India and the resulting digital data that's coming up. So one component that is missing in some sense for us to take more systematic advantage of it is the digital public quote-unquote infrastructure for AI itself, right? So obviously the government is trying to create a compute infrastructure for this. Government is trying to create data infrastructure for it, but we should also start creating a rich API system like the India AI stack, not the India AI stack, in the India stack, right? Allowed us to have authentication and a variety of different services that are provided in a very standardized tested manner. So we should also talk about providing AI services, AI tools that have been vetted and tested and that is available for people to build on top of, build applications on top of. So some kind of a digital public libraries of AI solutions that needs to be put out, right? So the Ministry of Education has funded 4 centers of excellence on different sectors in the country. One of the mandates that they have given for these 4 centers of excellence is that they should be building a public infrastructure on AI tools. So that is certainly coming, right? And so I'm hoping that the country can build on top of that as well.
Great. Thanks so much. Mr. Pati, I'll come back to you. A lot of developments are happening in parallel. I mean, he talked about the digital public infrastructure around AI coming together. You talked about many initiatives that the RBI is taking. Mr. Rathor talked about how the industry is approaching this and what their experience is. If I look at it from a supervisory angle or from a regulation perspective, we have seen a spectrum of how different countries have treated this, right? There is a EU Act, there is a US supervisory approach. If I take the free AI document, how does it position itself on this continuum? And how does, if I were to kind of look at it from the perspective of the foregoing stance that RBI will take with respect to oversight of AI, I think that it will be good to know your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. If you see, most of the countries and if you look at even 2 years back, there was a lot of fear around AI. It was like a technology which will pose so many threats. And therefore, many countries approached this with a safety-first approach. But the committee, when we met, there was a clear convergence of ideas that we need to explore the potential. And therefore, if you look at the report, it is divided across 2 basic pillars and philosophies. There are clearly on the innovation side. So the committee is recommended that we should strongly focus on innovation. And as part of that, and the second side is on the risk mitigation, which is pretty obvious. So as it happened, there are 13 recommendations which are talking about fostering innovation, exactly 13 recommendations which are talking about risk mitigation. So I would see that it happened. It was not designed to something like that, but as it happened, it strikes the real exact balance between innovation and risk mitigation. And as part of the innovation, and this part makes the report or India's recommended approach for the financial sector quite unique and distinct. that it's really talking about innovation in a big way. And the 13 recommendations talk about building data infrastructure, building AI sandboxes, talks about capacity building, information sharing, and many other things which would, bring benefits at an ecosystem level. I would say that this is a good way to look at it, exploit or explore the potential, and then move ahead. And also from a supervisory lens, as Mr. Anjani said, and it's known that it's a probabilistic model. So the technology cannot be foolproof at all the times. So therefore, we must, as a supervisor, as a regulator, we must, it needs to be recognized that it will commit mistakes at some point of time. So there has to be that degree of what you say, that tolerance approach towards supervision also, as well as within the internal audit frameworks, within the institutions also. So like organization has put in place all processes, product approval process, board policies in place, testings in place. Despite that, there are certain inadvertent outcomes. So should a full scope supervisory action be initiated from the first instance is the questions that is asked. So, or given that the organization has taken all the remedial action that is possible after the detection, and the model is also is fine-tuned to address any future risks, should a more tolerant approach be taken? So that's again, as the technology matures and supervisory and regulatory approaches also needs to be consistent with these changes. So these are the thoughts which is clearly laid out, and we must embrace the technology, but we also deal with the flip side of it in a more practical way.
Sure. I get reminded of a quote from Bill Gates who said once that, in 1 year you don't see things moving, very quickly, but you look at a decade and then you realize the transformation that you have seen. Mr. Rathor, coming to you, there is a certain start that the industry has made. But if I put a crystal ball in front of you and say that what do we see ahead, let's say 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line, how this picture is likely to emerge with all these developments going on across different parts of the ecosystem?
With AI, there is significant opportunity to reimagine every part of finance. If you look at customer engagement today in digital, most of the digital forms are actually form-like. It's a paper form which has moved to digital. That's the interface that we provide to citizens. And people have to fill it up. One of the challenges, people in rural might want it in their own vernacular language. But this is going to change big time with AI, and we are already seeing advent of that. We are going to move the UI, UX, which is now form-based, to conversation-based. And people might be talking tomorrow to fill up a form. They might be, just tapping a few buttons and the form gets filled. Your data gets pulled from various sources in DPI, and that goes to a regulated entity for credit underwriting. Likewise, even when it comes to credit underwriting, it is about establishing identity of a citizen. It is about ascertaining the capacity to pay. It is about the ability to find out the intent. All these things can be actually ascertained by pulling data from different sources, and that underwriting can happen much faster. So today, if you take especially a unsecured loan, that is much faster. But if you move to secured loan, that takes sometimes much longer. A lot of that is going to get compressed, and maybe you can avail of a loan from any regulated entity within a matter of same day, no matter how big that loan is, whether it is mortgaged or non-mortgaged, it doesn't matter. Likewise, in the operations, customer service, each area of finance is going to get reimagined with the technologies which are emerging. As you said, in a decade, it will be very difficult to make out where did we start, where did we end, but it is definitely going to change big time.
So that was the title of his book in which this quote is there, which is Business at the Speed of Thought. I think we will very soon realize that. Given the time, I just want to have one question each for you, which is somewhat quick kind of a question. And Mr. Rathod, I'll start with you. We all realize that because it's a probabilistic outcome, the things can go a little wrong, right? How do you think about fixing the liability around it? How do we see it as we go forward?
Well, this is one of the most debated topic within the committee as well, that who bears the liability should something go wrong. And frankly, we were lucky to look at precedents which we had. Even if you look at it otherwise, the outsourcing act which is there, the IT outsourcing especially, it could go to multiple parties, multiple vendors. But when there is an issue, the buck stops with the regulated entity who was supposed to do the job. You can choose to do it yourself. You can choose to outsource it to somebody else. But ensure that you are held accountable for the kind of work which is happening. So we were very certain that even in this technology, no matter where the problem lies, the accountability will reside with the entity that is deploying AI, and it cannot be federated further.
Yeah, I think that was a very clear answer. So thank you so much for that.
Coming from a regulated entity.
I mean, I was about to say that, but sir, because you're on the table, I did not.
In front of the regulator. So.
Yeah. Mr. Pati, I'll come to you. I mean, we have HDFC Bank, representation on this dais, but Indian financial system comprises a large number of small banks, cooperative banks, urban local banks, NBFCs, right? Do you see that this technology can potentially create a digital or AI divide, and therefore, as a I wouldn't say a regulator, but as a supervisor of this industry, what do you think that needs to be done?
Clearly, we would like that the potential of this technology does not remain confined to only the large entities or who have resources or the power. But we also would like that all the entities should reap the benefit of this technology. And it is quite right that their capacity challenges, resource challenges, financial strength, all these things are limiting factors. So to support this, we would, the committee has suggested that this AI sandbox and shared infrastructure and making it available at an affordable price point or an usage point of view, or prioritizing them who cannot afford their own independent infrastructure for developing models, testing solutions, they should be prioritized. So clearly we would want them to come forward. Second piece that they need is with regard to capacity building. Capacity building in the sense of both their board members getting adequately apprised of the latest developments, challenges, where they should use, what safeguards they should maintain, as well as in terms of the implementation teams, do have those adequate basic resources and give them some kind of, through a public infrastructure or a RBI, initiative, training establishments, initiatives, create those kind of opportunities for them. And also create a little more nuanced sort of regulatory framework for them for, let's say, low risk use cases when they are adopting. So for those entities, maybe we will have a little more tolerant approach or a softer regulatory framework, of course, with the guardrail that they only are experiencing or using the low risk use cases. And then slowly embed them as they mature on the scale, open them up to larger use cases or higher risk use cases.
Mr. Ravindran, I'll come to you. Mr. Pati also talked about it in terms of, there has to be a certain level of responsibility that these financial players will need to, own and assume. It then boils down to, whether the boss, whether the supervisor, is able to ask the questions around explainability or understandability of the decisions that the financial institution is making, right? And it is not an easy problem when it comes to AI, given the probabilistic nature that we have been talking about. The picture is changing, but what do you foresee? I mean, what kind of technical challenges and opportunities do we think we have?
So, I mean, if you look at the free AI report, this is not a recommendation, it's a sutra for us, right? It's a fundamental principle on which we have based most of our recommendations, is that AI should be understandable by design, right? So that's something that is very critical for enabling trust in these AI systems, right? So, but understandability is something that is a lot more nuanced than people think about. Oh, AI is a black box, you just have to open up the black box and things like that. No, that's not quite it, right? Understandability is about who is trying to understand the system. If it is a customer who is asking for an explanation for why a loan is given, you explain that one decision that you made. But if a manager wants to know, hey, why 30% more loans are being denied this time, the kind of explanations you will have to give about the AI system is something very different. And if the regulator comes and asks you a question about, hey, how the AI system is being operating, then the kind of understanding you have to give to the regulator is very different. So depending on who you are explaining it to, you would have to build different views into how the decisions are being made. This has nothing to do with the decisions being probabilistic, right? It has all to do with the process by which the computation by which you are arriving at the answer. It can be probabilistic, that's fine, we can take that into account. But sometimes you might not be able to explain every step in the computation, just like you don't know what neurons in your head are firing, right? So when you say something is green or blue or black, but you still are able to give some kind of a cogent explanation to that. So we have to build a similar framework for AI systems. That is still work in progress. A lot of work is happening in that space, but that's the view that we should take towards building AI systems that are understandable from the scratch, not as a post hoc activity.
Great. We have time for maybe one question, maybe max
if you
two,
talk first.
From the audience.
Correct? You have to ask the question first.
Yes.
I am Ravi.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
So what I was saying is, everyone says data is a new oil, and we are planning to build a data lake of sorts, would be a common repository of data. So are there any plans to monetize this data as well? Because there would be a lot of players who would want to get their hands on this type of data. Instead of giving them as a freebie, are we planning to monetize it as well?
I think Mr. Pati, you should answer this. How?
Should nahi, but yes, I will.
Attempt, yeah.
Yes, I will not answer this, but I will ask a question which will answer this. So we were thinking, like, if somebody, let's say we pull in data and people use this data to build models or build solutions. Now this is like we are doing it in the interest, or as they say, in the public interest, as a public good. So can we mandate those entities who are building these solutions based on the data made available to them on a platter, so to say, be openly available? That is something we were debating as to whether, or should they be allowed to commercially exploit it all the way, or we should make them, some kind of a degree that for so many years you please make this as an open source solution or make it available. That is the other way to look at it, how to develop a free, how do we enable them as well as make it for the larger societal good. If any other panelists would like to quickly add.
Yeah, no, so thank you so much. It's a very interesting conversation. Thank each of my panel members for their valuable time and insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.